So first of all, the crushed fibers here. I'm just gonna, I got my rag wet, and you can see that it's quite moist. And I'm just gonna push it into the, I don't want anything to go into this finished surface, but I really wanna try to crush some fluid into those crushed fibers. Yeah, just let it soak in. Make sure I'm not dripping. See, I dry on one side, wet on the other, just so I can keep control. Make sure it's not going everywhere. Okay, so that's pretty good. That's moisture saturated in there. And because now we're dealing with a curvature surface, this is definitely a huge impact. So I'm gonna kind of fold over so it's doubled up. Get some really good moisture in there. I'm gonna steam it and rotate it around, and then rotate more of my rag around. Just heat up get that steam going. Work a little bit. Get my dry part, keep that dry as much as possible. I'll get those steam marks out, those white markings. That's okay. Now, if there's anything loose, you got to tear it out. That piece in there. Nothing's wiggling. Okay, so it's now solid. So there's deeper crevices here. And the reason, and I'm using wood epoxy because my wood epoxy is going to solidify in those irregular patterns of the breaks. And so it's going to be pushed and forced in. So those are going to act as anchors. If I did not have this and it was more smooth, I would actually take my drill and I would drill holes in there so I can push the epoxy in there, which it attaches itself to throughout the circumference of all those holes. Plus it will keep it from falling off, is what its sole purpose to do so. So I just cut off a lobe section and then I peel that off, and now I got pretty much new. If there's yellow there, I just take that little shading off. Okay, I want that as clean as possible. And so then I cut off this as a section. This is 2 component, so that we have to knead this together. It's like dough in between your fingers. And it doesn't have a very good smell, but it does the job for what we're doing. And so we're going to take off a chunk. You can just, I like to overestimate a little bit. Okay, so that's quite a bit. I think we're going to probably use this a little bit less than this. And so I'm just going to take off the plastic coating on here. Okay, and you start kneading it. Oh, there's a piece of plastic. I thought there was one. Okay, so you mix this for about 45 seconds. And if I find if I mix too much more than that, if I go to a minute, it starts to actually harden up. Gives you less working time. You have to kind of pace yourself out regarding the working time and how much you have to do. That's why I don't want to worry about the wood around it, because that takes time. And so what we got to do, we got to make it 90-degree flat again and get our background color, which is going to match closer to this. And so we can bring in the grain and bring in the appearance and make it feather blend in. It won't even be real wood, but when we protect it, it's going to look almost like this. Okay, so it's turning into it's turned into a solid color. Okay, now we're gonna take a little bit and I'm just gonna really press it into those little crevices there. A little bit more. Now you feel a little bit of hard clumps sometimes. If you feel those, just take it. See, this takes time. You get it, and you take those out as you go. Okay, they'll get in your way later on. And you kind of want to move quite quickly. Okay. So I'm recreating a 90-degree. Okay. I'm a little bit indented, so I want to make sure that I'd rather be looking at too much than not enough. So what I'm doing isn't really taught in books or on the instructions. Okay, this is just what I do. Okay, so now the leftover, this is my timer. This tells me how quickly this is going to cure. So I'm just going to put that. I got some oil based, like Barsol paint thinner, or even in this case I got clear stain base. Okay, I'm just going to make that flat. Okay, and then I'm going to make sure that that's all oily. And I'm just going to start shading this. Okay, a little bit of gap right there. I'm just going to put that in. So now I actually just reduced my amount of wood epoxy. See, it's going, you want to keep on pushing it like this until that top portion goes flat. Squish another piece of putty there. Okay, so it's starting to get a little thicker. So it's starting to harden up a little bit, which is good. It's what we want. Now, right now it's still a little bit thick. It's thicker than it's not flush to the surface. Okay, so I'm going to just take off my You would do that, eh? Okay, and that's okay if you see this, because we've already covered underneath there. We covered everything that we want to have covered. So I'm just going to get some oil on my blade. Okay. Okay, so remember, this is my timer. Still pliable. Okay, so this is still too putty-like for what I want to do. When I go to shear this with my blade, I want it to shear as a solid, but it's still hard enough that it's going to keep its shape, but it's still soft enough that my blade's going to cut through the material easily before it fully cures. And when it fully cures, it becomes harder than wood itself. So there's not really much forgiveness afterwards except for hard labor. It's getting pretty tough now. And that was about maybe 35 seconds, 45 seconds before the last time I talked. So it hardens quite quickly in the chemical curing process. Okay, so I'm going to take this now. I'm actually going to strike it downward like this. And it doesn't really need to be perfect at this stage. We just want to get it nice and close. Okay, so that's a little bit. Okay. And if it's not perfect, that's okay, because we still got a little bit of other tricks up our sleeve here. Okay, that's nice and flat. I'm going to re-wet my blade again. Now I'm going to go this way. You kind of doing a shearing motion. Okay, still feel that. So now this board is actually cupped. Okay, so we're going to need to just work within that. Okay, so I'm going to have to just keep it nice and straight. Okay, I'm going to put my blade over. Now, with blades, all OLFA blades are not perfectly straight. In essence, if I have the hole here, the point here, so it has to be facing this way, the blade is now facing left, okay? It goes like this. So if I flip it over, those 2 points are going to touch. If I flip it like this, the center touches. Give it a shot. You'll see what I mean. If you want that concave, you just spin it around. Okay, so we're still flat there. We're flat there. Okay, so now I'll prepare myself for the next step.